So good morning again, audience, and I'm speaking today with another of our alums, Sheedy. He graduated in spring 2020. So what I call full pandemic cohort. He was very successful in obtaining job, again, online, interview online, onboarded online. So I was hoping that he can share his story about why UMass Dartmouth, why computer science. We heard from other alumni who wanted to be doctors or lawyers, but ultimately computer science won the day. So Cam, if you could please share your story.
Yeah, I'll kind of start at the beginning. So in high school, I didn't actually have any idea what I wanted to do. I messed around with like biology, toyed with being like a dentist or an orthodontist. I even considered taking like a gap year because I just wasn't that sure on any one thing. But what did it for me was we had virtual high school. So we had a whole slew of like elective courses that you could take online. And I took a Java 1 course my junior year and loved it. So I rolled that into my senior year and took AP Computer Science online. And that's when I really kind of caught the bug and knew that this was what I wanted to do. So I applied to UMass Dartmouth and UMass Dartmouth only because I had known that's where I wanted to go. I lived 20 minutes down the street in Fall River. So I knew I could commute. I knew I wanted to commute and work through school. So it didn't make sense for me to apply anywhere else. I probably don't have the most relatable story in that aspect because I know most people apply to 5 schools and make a decision. But I had my mind made up, and that's ultimately what I picked.
And so back in high school, virtual course, this was back in way before the pandemic.
Yeah, this was like 2015, 2016. So we were doing online before it was cool today.
Yeah, I don't know if people would regard online education as cool, but yes, yeah. You're right. So how did the program in UMass Dartmouth prepare you for life?
So the beginning of the program is, I like how it's set up in terms of the building blocks you put together, specifically in the computer science program, because the first couple years are very, you could almost say syntax based, where you come in, you could have no knowledge of how to code in any language, and you start with 2 pretty easy to learn languages and kind of learning based languages with Java and C. So you learn your syntax, you learn your basics, you learn your programming fundamentals, and then junior year and senior year, you move into more of conceptual stuff with algorithms and architecture and putting a big piece of software together rather than kind of solving problems and getting the basics in the first 2 years. So I think it's a good dichotomy of start with the basics and build those fundamentals and then expand upon into the concepts and the algorithms. And I think those last 2 years are really where you get prepared for life outside of school and your career outside of school, because you need the first 2 years to get to the second 2 years, and then those last 2 years are what really prepare you to get pushed out into industry, because you learn the skills you need to bring to industry, like building a big piece of software or working in a team or knowing the necessary algorithms to bring to the complex problems you'll solve outside of university.
I remember that in your senior design project, you were the team lead, but you had a bit of a demanding client. He was changing requirements and such. So I'm assuming it was stressful, but how do you see that experience as team lead? Why would anybody want to be a team lead?
I think it's a good experience to be a team lead, because you get to learn, I think you get to learn more so how to work in a team than not. I mean, I don't have the experience of not being a team lead because that's just the role that I was in, but I think it gives you a better, once you get into industry, every individual person kind of has to drive the interactions. It's not like in university where somebody's going to kind of keep on you. If you're not on yourself, the necessary things aren't going to happen. So as a team lead, you need to push yourself and others to have those interactions, to have the necessary meetings for the project to stay on course. So being a team lead forces you to do that in school. And it's a good experience because once you get out of school, even if you're just a member of the team, which you most likely will be once you start your first job in your career, you're not going to be in a leadership position on that team, but your leaders aren't going to be as on you as a professor would or a team lead in college would. You're going to need to take those same leadership skills and those communication skills, and you're going to have to drive those interactions and reach out to other teams, reach out to your own team. So I think being a team lead fosters those communication skills that you'll need as a non-leader in your career.
I have to emphasize on what you just said. It is very important that people communicate. It's not only email, but any way, reach out and inform other people of what you're doing. How are you? Any kind of collaboration that can be fostered. Communication is extremely important, even if it is just to keep yourself sane. You graduated in spring 2020, and as we know, I still remember the date. They closed us March 15, I believe. So pandemic came, they closed us initially for 2 weeks, and then it became apparent that we have to work from home. Did that stress you out regarding a job? I mean, all of a sudden everything's online. So what are you going to do?
Yeah, so I wasn't too stressed out about my job because I had interviewed in August and had my position offered to me in November, so way pre-pandemic. The things I was kind of worried about was like what happens now, because I had heard from various places that certain companies were either retracting offers or moving things around or delaying things. At a company like Amazon, I wasn't hugely worried because I had heard in the news that they're still hiring other positions. But I knew it was going to be more of an uphill climb once that started, because I had to move across the country to the other coast. So I had to find an apartment and coordinate all my work stuff, all the moving logistics, remotely, having never been to this actual state. So that was a bit of a stressful part. And there goes Alexa. Happens all the time. Yeah, that was the stressful part, was just trying to figure out all the logistics to get to the other side of the country. And work-wise, it was a bit stressful too, because normally I would have been out here maybe a couple months before or a month before, or I would have met somebody at the company beforehand. And you can have those face-to-face interactions and meet somebody in the office or just pop by the office to ask a question. Everybody was in their own homes, so it was a little bit more difficult to get in contact with people. The one advice I can probably give there is, with anything remote, don't wait to ask questions. As soon as you have a question, whether it's to a professor or another student or a company or an internship, the thing I've learned from being remote is over communicate, because you need to make up for the small communications you're missing in person. The little conversations you've had, you don't realize how much they add up and how much you get out of them until they're completely taken away. So if you try to over communicate and don't wait to communicate, it's really beneficial because you get that information you need, and there's so much time in between with it being asynchronous communication. If you need to know something, don't wait 2 hours to ask, because it may take 4 hours for that person to get back.
I have to share with the audience that Cam is another one of our alumni who has been very beneficial for the senior design, the capstone project course. He just recently came in as a guest speaker, and the feedback, Cam, that you're providing about communication and the timeliness of it, as well as the fact that nobody should sit silent in their house. It's better, like you say, to over communicate rather than just sit and stew in uncertainty. So I agree with that advice, let's hope that the students will see the benefit of it and will utilize it. If I could ask you, I know I'm putting you on the spot, but if there was one piece of advice that you could give to freshmen, to incoming students, what would it be?
The one piece of advice I would personally give is, I know it's tough because it's school, but try to go beyond just school. Try and learn more than just what you're taught in school, and do more than just what's required in school. And it can be easier if you have friends that you can do that with. So whether it's a hackathon outside of class, whether it's a small project, even if it's just a website you can develop for yourself for a portfolio, I think that's a good thing, even to just as an entry point, get started on. If you know you want to be a software developer, a great little project is to start, just make a website for yourself with an about section, keep that updated, keep links to your GitHub page with different projects, because that website in itself is a project. I think we're in such a competitive field where people have a real passion for the stuff that they do, where sometimes just your degree isn't going to be enough to secure you a job. It can be, but if you really want to have your options open, being able to exhibit that you go beyond and that you really love what you're doing, and you're curious about things, I think that's the best thing you can do for yourself. One, to figure out what you're interested in, what you like, with it being such a diverse technological field. There's 100 different routes you could go. That will help you figure out specifically what you may want to do, because you're not going to get that help in school. You're going to learn the basics and the skills, but nobody's going to open the field up to you to figure out what you want to do. And then on the other side, companies down the line, when you start your career, will look at that fondly and will get excited about that, because they see there's somebody who wants to learn and be curious about things and consistently get better while they're at that company for them.
I would like to follow up on the hackathons. So you're the second person who emphasizes the importance of hackathons, and we are hoping to organize a hackathon at UMass Dartmouth in conjunction with the ACM club. So we'll see what will happen. But you also mentioned putting yourself out there. So what is your opinion about LinkedIn profiles? Yay or nay?
I think you need a LinkedIn, and it needs to look nice and be well written. Just because somebody's probably going to check it at some point or another. I personally don't hold the stance that that much comes of LinkedIn, especially that early in your career. I think it's more geared towards people with like 5 to 10 years experience, where a company is looking for somebody with 5 to 10 years experience and it's going to seek them out and try and bring them in. The junior market is so flooded that the most it's going to bring you is just a recruiter checking, one, to see that you have a LinkedIn page, and just to kind of check who you are, what it looks like. It's better to have one that looks nice and is finished than for a recruiter to look up your name and say, oh, I can't find them. So it's a good thing just for visibility, just to show yourself off again.
What about GitHub? I know that I have been advising a lot of my students, seniors, to develop a nice repository where people can get a feel for how they speak programming languages. Is that useful?
I think so. I don't really practice how I preach. I don't have a GitHub with anything on it. I think it's a good idea. One, I think the best thing you'll get out of it is just teaching yourself Git, because no matter where you go, everyone will use it. Don't wait until senior design to learn it. I knew it pretty well, and it was a huge skill that I could kind of bring to my team to teach everyone, because it's a powerful tool to work on as a team. That's what I think you'll get out of having it, is being able to just make a commit or open a code review, or push and make a branch. But it's another thing where I think like LinkedIn, where it's a good thing and it shows that you took the time to have a GitHub, and use it, and shows you know a little bit about Git and source control. But I don't think anyone is ever going to look through it. A recruiter is going to look at your resume. Maybe they look up your GitHub. If they get that far, they're not going to spend the time to really look through anything or read any of your code. So I wouldn't worry about that. I would make it more for yourself and your own self-development to learn it and kind of show them that you did learn it. It's proof that you learned Git and tried that out and explored around with it.
Okay, now that you mentioned that, I might ask you to come and teach the junior class. But anyway, so I think it's time to wrap this up. And again, thank you very much for your time today. Any last remarks to all students, not just freshmen?
Last remarks. I would say that specifically for computer science, because that's what I went through, it's going to be hard. Like there's going to be points where it's really hard, but it's a lot of fun. And try and get a group that you like to work with, and you can help each other, because one thing I've learned is that software engineering is a team game. There's almost this kind of stereotype that a lot of people are at their computer by themselves with headphones on, cranking out code. It's not how it works. The amount of times I did pair programming in senior design, where two of us would sit at one computer and work on the exact same code, and no joke, it goes 10 times faster. When you're bouncing ideas off of each other, when you're both looking at the same thing, trying things, try to start that early, and it will be super helpful. I remember in 190, I didn't really do that. And I don't think a lot of people did do that, because you were kind of just working on your assignment, your project. Try and write code with other people. It's how it'll work in senior design. It's how it'll work when you get in your career. It's going to be a lot easier for you, and it's going to be a skill you can bring for the rest of your career.
Well, thank you, Cam, so much. again, your time here for this interview is very much appreciated. So thank you, and see you in the future.